Hi guys, recently I have been asked a lot of questions on how to make newspaper baskets, so I figured I would make a video tutorial on how to help others learn. This tutorial is going to be about how to make the newspaper tubes, which is sometimes called newspaper wicker. It's right here. Alright, you're going to need newspaper, something to cut with, whether it's a pair of scissors or my favorite, one of these Fisker paper cutters, a ruler, something to mark your newspaper with, glue. I use Elmer's school glue, but you can use pretty much any kind of glue, and something to roll with. You can use these little wooden skewers. I got them in a pack from Save-A-Lot. This is what I originally started with, but after a little while your fingers start to hurt, so then I moved on to these metal knitting needles. The thing I like about these is they don't have that end on them. They're both ends are pointed, so as you roll, there's nothing that's going to hold the paper up on one side. Before I show you how to make these tubes, there are a couple things I wanted to point out. You will have newsprint on your hands. This is not a clean craft. I use Elmer's glue, so if a little gets on the surface, it wipes right up. But if you're worried about the surface you are rolling on, I would put something on it like a piece of poster board. There is a science to rolling these tubes. I know the video will make it look easy, but it's not. There is a learning curve. The first time I tried to roll these, it took probably about 40 tubes before I got it right. Don't get discouraged. You will get it. Truth be told, I still have trouble getting consistent newspaper rolls. When I mess up, I use them as cat toys. The cats love them. So the first thing you want to do is get your newspaper out. I like to measure to get a rough idea on where I want to cut. The width of the paper is completely up to your personal preference, but this is what works for me. The width does not have to be exact. I just try to make it close. This is my favorite paper. I noticed that when I use a lot of the bigger Sunday papers, the paper likes to rip and tear when I try to roll it. I found that the local newspaper is the perfect thickness and rarely does it tear. If you're getting a lot of tears when you roll, instead of getting frustrated, just try a different brand of newspaper. Put my paper to the side and cut this way. That way, that little crease that holds the paper together is not something I have to open the paper all the way up and cut down the side. So I want to make sure that's part of my paper. So when I open it up, I get a nice long piece of paper like this with the crease in the middle, versus having to cut the crease and then you get a shorter. So after you've taken out all the inserts on the inside and you've made sure that all the papers are doubled up and not a single piece in there, you want to turn your paper to the side and just, it doesn't have to be exact here. I want to cut these in thirds. I want about a 2 3/4, 3-inch width of paper. So I just mark 2 3/4 inch, move it over, mark 2 3/4 inch, move it over. So now I know that this is going to cut 3 strips up and down. Don't forget that if your paper is doubled up, you're going to go ahead and you're going to want to mark it on the back too, because this is going to be too thick to put through my paper cutter. So I'm going to have to open it up. And when I get to this way, it's not marked here. So you want to make sure you do 2 3/4 inch, either go all the way down or just flip your paper over and do 2 3/4 inch on the back side as well. So I'm going to do that right now. Just move it over 2 3/4 inch. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. You don't need all your paper widths to be exactly the same. You just want them close. Usually try to cut several papers at one time, kind of like this, so I don't have to keep cutting before I roll. I just cut stacks and stacks of papers and then sit down and roll at my leisure. So I found out a little trick when I'm doing that. If you have more than one paper and they're all the same size, what you can do is take those marks that you already have, and I just kind of slide it down about an inch, half an inch here. Put my top paper here with the marks on them. And then instead of having to measure them all the way out, all you do is take a ruler, go to your first line that you made, and just kind of mark it on the other papers. That way you don't have to waste your time measuring again. And again, remember, you want to make sure that you mark on the back side as well. So on these, just going to flip them over. Okay, so you're just now going to mark on the back side too. All right, you're all done with that part. Now you're ready to cut your strips. I like to use this little Fisker paper cutter. You can use scissors, but I found that after a while your hands start hurting from the cutting through the paper like this. So I just found it easier that if I use this paper cutter, it makes things a lot easier on my hands. And your hands are going to start hurting after you start rolling too. So the easier the better. This particular one has a little piece of metal in there. I don't know if you can see it. It's like a little guide in between there. And it's perfect for anything you're doing. And basically you just match it up. Make sure the guide's in the middle where your line is. Sometimes you have to kind of move your paper around a little bit. And then just cut it into strips. And you want to just go ahead and keep doing that until all your papers are cut, or at least the one you're working on currently is cut. I mean, I like to do everything at the same time just to make sure that I don't have to keep going back and forth in whatever I'm doing. Again, I like to kind of organize it where I do all my strips at one time, and then all my rolls at one time, and then weave all at one time. So now you have your paper strips, and basically what's going to happen, you're going to put all your extra ones away. You're going to take your strip like this. See the crease in the middle? That's where I didn't want to open the paper and cut it, so that's why I cut it the length that I did. It makes a nice long strip of paper. So you want to get your skewer or your knitting needle. Again, it's whatever you have available. If you can find something that is round and kind of sturdy and as flat as possible, that's the best way. I noticed that when I used these wooden skewers, a lot of times if I had a little glue on my fingers, the glue would get stuck in the roll, and then you'd either have to throw it away or try to pull out the skewer, and that wasn't necessarily a great thing. I did find this online. I love this. It's got all different sizes of knitting needles, so no matter what size you want your tubes, there's a knitting needle in here for that size. Again, what I love about these needles is it does not have the little thing on the end that when you roll would keep it off the table on one side. I like a nice smooth roll. Okay, you're going to want to watch the angle of your skewer when you're trying to roll these. If you roll it too much to the side like this, you're going to have a really short roll. It's not going to stay together. It's going to unravel really easily. It's going to be super thick. And when you try to go ahead and join the two pieces of paper together, it's not going to work. So you also don't want to roll it too far vertically, because you're going to run into the same problem. You're going to have this roll and it's going to get really loose at the bottom and be really tight at the top. And it's just not going to roll right. So what I like to do is kind of take it just a little bit toward the end like this, where there's just a little bit, and you want to take your paper around. I like to try to, with your fingernail, tuck it in a little bit, make it nice and tight. And then you want to just start the rolling. I like to do it on the flat surface first and get it started like that before I pick it up. Once you do not let go, if you let go, it's going to get really loose. So you want to go ahead and pick it up and kind of keep it firm while you're getting started here. And you just want to roll it up. And again, keep even tension on it all the way down the roll. If you let go, this whole paper is going to let go. Once you get past your tube, you want to try to, as you're turning down here, squeeze a little up here, not until it flattens out, but just to keep even pressure. And then you'll know you got it right when you have this little triangle at the end. And you just want to put a little tiny bit of glue on that spot right there. Hold on, my glue is not working. It's not open. Kind of smear it around a little bit. Make sure it gets up to the very top there. And just roll it. You're going to have glue that kind of seeps out. It's going to get on your fingers like that. Just go ahead and kind of wrap it around the tube like that. That'll make it a nice, good seal there, and it won't come unraveled. Just want to take a minute and show you some of the tubes that I first started to roll. And these are stained, and we can get into that in another video. But if you notice, the end is really, really wide at one end and really narrow at the other. I thought I had done a really great job when I did these because I didn't know any better. But when you go and try to use these, they're about worthless. You go to put them in and it's too flabby up here. They bend really easily. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a nice even roll that's a little bit bigger than the bottom part. And that's how you know you've done it right, if you look at the size difference between these two rolls. Because what's going to happen as you weave, you're going to go ahead and connect these together. So you want to try to make sure that they are pretty even in size, and you know you're doing well when you can get a pretty consistent size. Again, I have trouble still to this day getting consistent size, but you want to try to make sure that they're all very similar in size. a little bit bigger at one end than the other, but not a huge amount like this. This is not what you're looking for. I just want to take a moment here and roll this paper the wrong way to kind of show you what happens when you do too much at an angle. So sometimes you're starting off and you start off with a corner here and you think, hey, that's pretty cool, I got that little corner. And you start to roll it. Again, you tuck it under. And you see that it's not progressing very far up the stick. It still works, but at the end, and the closer you get toward the end of your roll, you're going to notice that the paper starts going more like this instead of like this. So it's more like a straight angle. So this top is going to be super fat. You can still use it and put glue on it and maybe work with it. You can try. But I found that these, again, you get a really inconsistent roll, and a lot of times it likes to do that. So that's why I like to do it at the angle that I do. And one more time, I'll show you how to do it correctly, so that's what's in your head and not the wrong way. And again, you can come to the end of the table like that to kind of get a little bit more of a grip on it. And you want to try to keep it at a pretty good angle there. Tuck it under the skewer if you can with your fingernail. Again, this takes a little bit of practice. It's probably not something you're going to be able to do the first time you try to do it. And if you notice, the paper is not this way. It's kind of got a flag at the end. And again, just put your glue on it. Now, depending on the size of your project, it will depend on the number of tubes you're going to need. A lot of even the smaller projects require anywhere between 100 and 120 tubes. Again, I don't like to start a project and then stop in the middle. So a lot of times I just take one day and I roll tubes, and I might stain tubes the next day. I might leave them the way they are and then work on my project like that. But I hate being in the middle of a project and having to stop to roll tubes. It is not my favorite thing to do. Your hands will hurt, sometimes your shoulders too. So I always try to get a pretty good stash of rolls before I start any of my baskets. And I recommend that you do the same. But again, it's completely up to you. Well, I hope you learned something from this video. I love feedback, so don't hesitate to leave your comments below. And if you like this video, please make sure you subscribe, as I will be making more how-to videos in the near future. Have fun and happy rolling.